And if I started from scratch again, I'd do it too, selling info products. I was inspired to make this video after I stumbled across an info product the other day teaching you how to look after chickens at home. The part-time farmer who created this info product is making over $20,000 a month, selling 20 of these online programs at $1,000 each. If you want to achieve the same, grab a notepad as I'm going to explain the steps you need to take in order to make over $10,000 per month with info products. Unlike traditional businesses such as this cafe, info products cater to every market. Just think, no location limitations whatsoever. Right now I'm at one of my favourite beaches, but whether you're in the UK or overseas, we can still buy the same information products online. Since they're digitalised, they're not tied to one specific market. Even though info products have a global reach, they are still limited by the niche you pick, so make sure there's enough demand and minimal competition. Consider the health niche, for example. I normally just think about online personal trainers and workout plans. And let me tell you, that's not for me. But a guy called Anthony Mativa thought outside the box and used his knowledge of languages to create the magnetic memory method, which is an info product focused on enhancing your memory skills. Now, I could do with a bit of that myself. It's not just for seniors looking to stay mentally sharp. Students are also using it to excel in exams, meaning he's captured an extremely diverse audience. So Anthony identified a niche, pinpointed valuable knowledge within it, and as a result is generating an annual income of more than $120,000. So how can you do this too? Well, first choose a skill. Let's say a sport like tennis, for example. If you can become like a 6 out of 10 skill-wise, then people will want to learn from you. However, taking this route is time-consuming. Additionally, if you're not an expert, it could negatively affect sales because you may not appear as trustworthy as someone with prior professional experience. So, how can you overcome this? Well, you could pair up with an expert in the tennis world and build an info product together. An expert doesn't have to be an ex-professional. They might have experience in tennis tutoring, run a club, or have a sport qualification. If you're more business orientated, then this allows you to work behind the scenes to ensure it all runs smoothly, whilst the actual tennis coach teaches within the videos or writes the step-by-step guides. Say you sell 20 programs per month at a rate of $997 per month. It always seems to end in a 7. That would generate $19,940. Then shared 50-50 with your business partner, that would total around about $10,000 each. To be exact, it would be $9,970 profit. Of course, you need to minus your expenses, but you get the idea, and they're not going to be that much on an info product. Now, you could either choose to scale this up and sell more programs per month, or you could partner with another expert and repeat the process. It would be a lot quicker the second time around, as you'll just be repeating a proven formula. Traditional businesses are making a real play towards building out their own communities because they've seen the rise of influencers and the power of followings. Take this pretty little thing order, for example. My son's girlfriend goes mad for this stuff. This unmistakable pink unicorn packaging is so much more than just a plastic bag. It's a symbolic gateway into the brand community, connecting customers with influencers who wear and help design the clothes. PLT's online community pulls in a whopping £712.2 million annually, which is the equivalent to almost $900 million a year. So they've obviously been extremely successful in attracting customers with their branding, which not only enhances the sense of community, but also helps to convert fans into paying customers. So what can we take from this? Well, if you want to increase your conversion rates, then you need to build some kind of community around your info product. But why are conversion rates so important? Well, let's say you reached 50,000 potential customers online, then normally you can expect a 2% conversion rate, which would mean you sell 1,000 products. Let's say you price them at $1,000 each. With a conversion rate of 2%, that means you're going to make $100,000. Not bad, right? Well, imagine if the people that you reach felt like they were part of something bigger, a community led by you in a free Facebook or Discord group. You could boost that conversion rate to 5%, which means you'd sell 2,500 products and make woohoo! $250,000. Hopefully now you can see why brands are pumping so much time and money into building online communities. But building communities from scratch is hard. So here's how I'd go about it. Build a personal brand. I mean, there's so much free traffic on TikTok right now. I don't necessarily think you need a personal brand. Of course, you could just run ads, but it's definitely a much more cost-effective way to reach a mass audience and make a personal connection. One of my old video editors actually followed this exact roadmap. He wasn't the best editor out there, and honestly, he was a little bit lazy, but he understood how to make a YouTube channel and has now launched his own editing course. All of his videos combined have garnered millions of views in the editing niche, and he's now making more than $10,000 per month, and his community worships him like some kind of editing god. And I bet he still can't get out of bed on time. You seriously don't need to be the next Mr. Beast. If you build a strong community of 50,000 people, then there is no reason why you can't be making $100,000 a year. Actually, I take that back. You definitely should be making 100K a year. Just make sure you collect everyone's contact details and build an email list, as this way you can own your audience and not rent it from a social media platform that could shut you down at any point. Businesses have been taking advantage of upselling for years, and it's only getting more common. McDonald's have introduced digital ordering screens to almost all of their locations. These machines always try to upsell customers to larger meals, sometimes even using pulsing pictures to make you click on them. Even after you've finished ordering, another screen pops up offering additional items with attractive pictures, aiming to maximize the amount of money per order. Here's a diagram of something called the value ladder. This is what companies use to upsell customers, and so can you. As you can see, the customer will always be lured in by some bait and then encouraged to the top of the ladder through various offers. Let's put this into context. There's a new video game out and it hooks you in with a free trial, the bait. The temptations take over and you've bought the full version. That's the first step. After this, they offer a weapon pack, and before you know it, you've spent your entire monthly wage and you've reached the top of the ladder. So how can you create a value ladder of your own? Well, imagine you're selling a fitness info product. So the bait could be a free workout guide which draws people in. For your first step, you could offer a 4-week program for $9.99. Then you could follow this up with a personalized coaching package for $999 a year. I mean, you could even follow this up with VIP one-to-one sessions for $5,000 per year. So if 100,000 people download your free workout guide and 5% buy the program, that would make you $49,950. If 5% of those people, which would be 250, opt for coaching, this would add an extra $249,750 to your pocket. And then if 2% of those people, which would be 5 people, join your one-to-one VIP coaching, it would bring in an extra $25,000. That value ladder would generate you a total of $324,700 per year. And if you want to make even more, then you just have to reach more people initially. I mean, if you manage to get 1 million people to download your free workout guide, then you can multiply all these numbers by 10. As we discussed, creative is in a frenzy and everyone is asking the same question. Should I sell now before it gets worse? But there's more to this than meets the eye. If you followed me for a while, you know I'm a serious investor who's obsessed with the stock market. And since so many of you have started investing because of my videos, I feel a responsibility to give you my honest take on the situation. So before you panic, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture together. Every market crash has a cause, and this one isn't random. There are 3 main triggers behind it, and all of them tie back to one man, Donald Trump. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, this isn't about politics. I'm not here to take sides, and as a British investor looking in, my only concern is how this impacts investors like you and me. So let's break down the 3 biggest triggers behind this crash, why they matter, and what you can do to benefit from all this mayhem. Trigger 1 is Trump's trade war. Trump has always pitched himself as the ultimate deal maker. He's the guy who fights for American jobs and plays hardball with other countries. But the trade wars he's fighting could increase your weekly shopping bill and cause a recession. The last time the US tried this, it helped trigger the Great Depression, wiping out jobs and wrecking the economy. Now, history might be repeating itself. Stocks are already crashing, prices are rising, and if this spirals, it won't just hurt Wall Street, it'll hit you where it matters most. Your bank account. Let me take you back to 1930 when I was just a boy. The US government decided to slap massive taxes called tariffs on imported goods to protect American businesses from foreign competition. It was called the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, and it turned out to be one of the worst economic mistakes in history. At first, it seemed like it would help. American companies wouldn't have to compete with cheap imports and more products would be made in the USA. But there was a big problem. Other countries fought back. Nations that used to trade with the US started raising their own tariffs, making it harder for American businesses to sell products overseas. Trade slowed to an absolute crawl. Businesses collapsed and millions lost their jobs. Instead of fixing the economy, it helped turn a regular recession into the Great Depression, one of the worst financial crises ever. Fast forward nearly a century and Trump has brought back tariffs in a big way. In February 2025, Trump announced a 10% tariff on Canadian energy imports and a 25% tariff on other Canadian goods. In retaliation, Canada imposed a 25% tariff on American imports. Then in March, Ontario implemented a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the US, affecting states like New York, Michigan and Minnesota. However, in my opinion, this was more of a symbolic move that wouldn't have seriously damaged the US economy. However, Trump didn't hold back, and instead of just brushing it off, he fired back by increasing tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminium to 50%. Unlike Canada's move, this wasn't just for show. It hit Canada's manufacturing industry hard while also driving up steel prices for American businesses that rely on imports. But why am I telling you all this? Well, this is where the real problem starts. Tariffs sound good on paper, as they're meant to punish foreign businesses while encouraging more stuff to be made in America. But in reality, they end up hurting regular people more than anyone else. As a business owner who manufactures products and imports from China myself, I know that when businesses are forced to pay more for materials, they don't just absorb the cost, they pass it on to their customers. That means higher prices on cars, appliances and electronics. In addition to this, food becomes more expensive because supply chains get disrupted, meaning that everyday essentials cost more, stretching household budgets even further. On top of that, other countries aren't just sitting around while Trump raises tariffs. They're forming new alliances to trade without the US. China is leading the charge with the BRICS alliance, partnering with Brazil, Russia, India and South Africa to reduce dependence on American trade. So the more the US isolates itself, the more other countries look elsewhere for business. So what's my opinion on all of this as an experienced investor? Well, if Trump goes all in on this trade war, history suggests it'll do more harm than good. While some industries might get a short-term boost, the long-term damage, such as higher prices, weaker global ties, and a slowing US economy, could far outweigh any benefits. But if I'm being completely honest, I don't think Trump actually wants high tariffs. I know that sounds crazy, but hear me out. Trump is, at his core, a businessman and a deal maker, just like me. That's why I believe he's using tariffs as a negotiation tactic, not as an end goal. So if that's true, what does he actually want? Well, I think he's after free global trade, but on terms that favour the US. And if he pulls that off, it could pay off big time. However, the problem is his approach is creating massive uncertainty. The constant backtracking, new tariffs and mixed signals are spooking the stock market because investors hate unpredictability. If this drags on too long, it could shake confidence so much that it pushes the economy towards recession, something even Trump's own administration has admitted they're willing to risk. Right now, the market isn't just reacting to tariffs. It's reacting to uncertainty about what comes next. And in investing, uncertainty is one of the biggest killers of confidence. Trigger 2 is Trump's stance on NATO. Trump has openly questioned the role of NATO, the military alliance that protects Western countries. He suggested that the US shouldn't keep defending allies unless they start paying more for their own protection. While that might sound like a fair demand, if the US steps back from its NATO commitments, it could create a power vacuum that countries like Russia and China might exploit. Markets hate uncertainty. The second investors sense that world stability is at risk, they panic. If NATO weakens, it could encourage Russia to push further into Europe, or even lead to new conflicts as countries try to adjust to a world without the USA acting as the global police force. More conflicts mean higher military spending, unpredictable trade relationships, and spikes in energy prices, all of which can rattle the stock market. Trigger 3 is Trump's secret plan. There's been a theory circulating that Trump may be crashing the stock market on purpose. I know that sounds crazy, but there is some evidence for it. Trump has never been a fan of high interest rates. In fact, he's called them ridiculous and has openly attacked the Federal Reserve for keeping them high. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The Fed is technically independent, meaning Trump can't just tell them to cut interest rates, but their decisions are based on economic conditions. If the stock market crashes and a recession seems inevitable, the Fed has no choice but to step in and slash interest rates to prevent a total meltdown. But why does Trump want lower rates? Well, because high interest rates slow down the economy. Businesses borrow less, stocks struggle, people stop spending as much, and for Trump, who loves growth and hates anything that makes America look weak, they're a problem. It's not just about making the stock market go up, it's way bigger than that. The US government is drowning in $36.5 trillion of debt, and when interest rates are high, the cost of that debt goes through the roof. Think of it like a massive credit card bill. Imagine you owe $36,500 and your credit card company charges 10% interest per year. That means before you even start paying down the actual debt, you're being charged $3,650 every single year just in interest. Now imagine the credit card company suddenly slashes the interest rate to 3%. Instead of paying $3,650 per year, your interest drops to just $1,095 annually. That's a saving of $2,555 every single year. Now you can put this money towards actually paying off your debt instead of just keeping up with your interest payments. Well, that's exactly what Trump might be doing, but on a $36.5 trillion scale. If the Fed lowers interest, complete lie. The trouble is, a lot of people that want to get rich are trying to live a lifestyle like this. Why? Because many would rather look rich than actually be rich. So if you're someone that just wants to show off a flashy lifestyle, then this video isn't for you. Turn it off and go and spend the next 30 years spending everything you have until you get to 50 years old and have nothing to show for it. Don't get me wrong, I did experience all the things I mentioned, however, not until I had at least $1 million in liquid assets. So when I say you have little to no chance of becoming a millionaire at the same time as living a lavish lifestyle, I'm not trying to crush your dreams, quite the opposite. I want you to do all the hard work now so you can enjoy all the benefits of wealth later on. The biggest being the freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want. So if you want to become rich, then listen up, because if I was in your position, I'd avoid buying these 7 things. Number 1, a house. A lot of people aren't going to agree with this one, but buying a house for yourself, if you're serious about getting extremely rich, is one of the worst moves you can make. I didn't always think this way, but in recent years I've changed my mind, mostly due to a conversation with my son Curtis. One day he revealed to me that he'd saved up around $70,000 from working a couple of years as a freelance videographer, and I suggested he used it as a deposit on a house and start paying off a mortgage. Now before I continue, I still stand by this advice if you're just looking for a slightly better than average level of wealth, but now it doesn't apply to those that want to become truly rich. Curtis was and still is very against the idea of buying a house for himself. At the time he said to me, "It's taken me years to save up this money. Why would I lock it up in a house rather than reinvest it into building my business, which has already made me a decent amount of money?" I took a moment to think and I realized he was completely right. Buying a house for himself would lock up all the money he'd worked so hard to earn, meaning he couldn't leverage it to make more, and he'd have to start from ground zero again. Let me clear something up though. I'm only talking about buying a personal property to live in. Buying a rental property or house hacking by renting out part of the property is a completely different thing and pretty smart. If you aren't doing any of these things, then renting is actually a better idea. Most people find this hard to get their heads around as they just see it as money wasted every month. But the return Curtis could be getting on the deposit money that would have been locked away is far more valuable. I know this is the complete opposite from what a lot of older people will tell you. However, what most don't consider is back in our day, it was much easier to buy a property as it required far less money down. Getting a mortgage is kind of like a locked savings account. So it's only a good idea for people that are just going to waste the money or leave it sitting in a bank account doing nothing. Luckily, Curtis reinvested the money back into his business, Tilbury Multimedia Limited, which currently generates about $1 million each year. So if you want to be rich, then you have to find a better investment vehicle than a house to live in. Number 2, the latest tech. Nobody really cares if you've got the latest iPhone or Apple Watch. Too many people upgrade to the latest tech items just because it looks cool or they think it makes them happier. I waited so long to upgrade from my iPhone 3G that the apps actually stopped working. I could normally deal with this without too many issues, but I was doing a lot of sales on eBay at the time and I needed to use the app, so there was a value to upgrading to a new model. However, instead of going out and buying the latest model, I decided to buy an iPhone 4, which is when my son had the latest iPhone 6S. He used to laugh at me using my older phone, but it did everything I needed it to do, and a newer model wouldn't have made me any happier as I just see it as a business tool. The truth is, while owning a useful device like an iPhone or an Apple Watch can be beneficial, upgrading to the newest version for the sake of having the latest technology is not a wise financial decision if you're aiming to become truly rich. Instead, focus on purchasing items that can have a much bigger impact on your life and avoid being drawn in by the marketing hype. Number 3, investments you don't understand. Let's face it, too many people got into investing during the pandemic without really knowing what they were doing. They simply put their money into stocks and hoped the value would increase, which is a terrible idea. As Ty Lopez would put it, it's all about knowledge. Knowledge of stocks, the market, Wall Street, and the trading tools that you're using. That's why Moomoo is sponsoring this section of the video, as in my opinion, Moomoo is not just a trading platform for buying and selling stocks, but a tool that truly focuses on helping investors have a better experience, especially beginners. It was founded in Silicon Valley and has over 20 million users worldwide, allowing them to trade stocks straight from their iPad, laptop, or smartphone. I love that it provides me with free vital information about a company, such as how a company performed in the past, what it's projected to do in the future, and how Wall Street analysts rate it. You can also find more than 2,500 free investment courses, ranging from beginner to advanced levels. If you join Moomoo today using the link in the description, you can receive up to 15 free stocks, each worth between $3,000 and $2,000. That's an amazing deal. These free stocks can help you start building your investment portfolio right away. Number 4, gifts for a partner. I'm not saying don't buy your partner gifts. I'm actually going one step further. I don't think you should have a partner at all when you're laying the building blocks for your empire. When I was in my teens and early 20s, I had a 4-week rule. If I knew a girl I met wasn't going to be the one, then a maximum I would allow was 4 weeks. I thought it was kind to allow them to move on, as it meant I didn't have to buy any expensive presents, as you aren't really socially expected to buy any gifts if you've only been seeing someone for a couple of weeks. According to the National Retail Federation, the average person will spend around $103 on Valentine's Day gifts per year. Now, I know that doesn't seem like a huge deal, but that's just one occasion. You will need to budget about $100 minimum for birthdays, Christmas, and anniversaries as well. Let's throw in the extra $15 a month for flowers, and you're looking at an extra $180. That's over $580, and we haven't even started on those little surprises throughout the year or times that call for bigger presents. We've all been there. I don't want to come across as being cheap, but the only person there'll be too much competition in the online space. Well, teenagers have an advantage as they understand the online world better than anyone else. It's just second nature. But Mark, I don't know what to do. Well, that's why I'm going to be revealing the 7.5 best paid online jobs for teenagers. And this isn't any old list. For each one, I'm going to provide a real life example of a teenager currently killing it in that job. Job 1 is an advertising deal broker. Teenagers doing this job earn as much as $100,000 to $120,000 per year. In 2021, I bought a Tesla Model 3 and I set myself a bit of a challenge. I wanted to see if it was possible to use lots of different side hustles to earn back the price of the car. One of the ideas my son and I came up with was to get it wrapped like a race car, which would involve securing paid advertisements. At this point, we received a cold email from a teenager called Christian, completely out of the blue, who said that he was able to secure the sponsorship we required for a 30% commission. Christian managed to get an offer of $30,000 on the table. Had we accepted this deal, he would have made a sweet $9,000 for essentially matching us with the brand and acting as the middleman. In the end, Curtis managed to secure a different deal with public.com, so we went with them. However, Christian has managed to secure many of these deals in the past. That's why we can still offer you a free stock worth all the way up to $1,000 from Public with the link in the description. Christian told me that the best way to be successful with this job is to make friends in the right places. He described it a lot like a jungle, where one branch would lead to the next one and so on. Once you start working with one big company, it becomes a lot easier as you can reference them as a past client and therefore demonstrate that you have experience in the areas that they require. So how does he do it? He uses different software to get the email addresses of influencers and just fires off messages until he gets a bite. Then he evaluates the needs of the clients that contact him back and runs a similar campaign focused on reaching out to brands on the influencer's behalf. It kind of reminds me of the book How to Win Friends and Influence People, where Dale Carnegie talks about sending mail to powerful people and getting replies, only the modern day version. If we learn anything from Christian, it's the power of a good reference and relationships. Always do your best work because you never know where something might lead in the future. Job 2 is a Discord community manager for Web3. These teens make more than $70,000 a year, depending on their multitasking ability. When it comes to marketing for Gen Z, community is everything. Every brand under the sun is trying to build a community around their product. This is actually the main reason why Gymshark have set up their first store in London.
The real purpose of this store needs to be to really cultivate the Gymshark community and connect with people.
Now, if you've ever used Discord, then you've probably met a community manager. They're like the glue that holds everything together. I know a guy called Harry who hires community managers. He said that he wouldn't bat an eyelid at paying more than $2,000 per week if they were good at the job and represented the brand in a positive light. Additionally, if you're good at multitasking, there's nothing stopping you from being a community manager for 3 or 4 projects at the same time, which means big money. The job of the community manager is to be on the front line. You have to tell the story of the brand, be customer service and support, as well as supporting people when they're down and paying attention to global events. You need to be able to pause your schedule, be active when people are looking for you, and listen when people need your attention. Above all, you have to be the voice of the CEO, but not always speak on behalf of the company. Job 3 is writing scripts for content creators. These teens can earn upwards of $100,000, but can go a lot higher depending on the type of content and your experience. Words can make you sound smart, or they can do the opposite, depending on how they're deployed. That's why businesses hire copywriters, basically salesmen in print. Copywriters can make insane amounts of money. I'm talking over $500 an hour in many cases. It all depends on how good you are at making connections, your skill with words, and how fast you can write. Some charge as much as $50,000 for just one web page. You may be thinking, why so much? Well, it's all about value. If you charge $50,000 for a web page and it results in a business monthly profit going from $200,000 to $400,000, wouldn't you say it's worth it? It's all about leverage, making rich clients even richer, then asking for your slice of the pie. And it's not just websites either. People need quality writers for all sorts of things. Everything from TikTok scripts to threads on Twitter. Content is king, and the magician behind all of this is often the writer. I know a guy named Adam. He started off writing blog posts about his travels to earn passive income and live anywhere in the world. This later led him to working as a copywriter for large influencers. He followed the same strategy as Christian, got one client, which led to another, and so on. He told me when he offers a service, he always tries to be exclusive and do it in a way that no one else could. There's always going to be someone cheaper than you, but not always someone more expensive. Find the client who can afford to pay the premium, then learn to offer a world-class service. Job 4 is a SaaS software coder. These teens can earn between $60,000 and $80,000 a year. A guy called Sam King came on my podcast, Strike It Big, and explained how he built a multi-million-dollar business without ever having a normal job. Instead of building a traditional business, he decided to build a SaaS company. This stands for Software as a Service. Just think of how many online tools you use on a daily basis. I know I love Notion, MailChimp, Photoshop, and many. There are 40 money-making books that have really stuck with me. So in this video, I'm going to condense all of these books into the core lessons that will actually make you rich. And no, I'm not just saying this. I have experience doing it. I've gone from absolute zero to making tens of millions, and I didn't make my money on YouTube like most people on here. I did it running real businesses. So I promise that the things I'm going to share with you today will take you from $0 to $100,000, $100,000 to $1 million, and $1 million to $10 million if you apply them correctly. Level 1, going from $0 to $100,000. First, you need to master your mind. I didn't come from a wealthy background, and during my youth, I vividly remember people saying the phrase, money is the root of all evil. Secrets of the Millionaire Mind explains how these phrases program us to believe that rich people are the devil. It took me a long time to rid myself of the negative feeling in my stomach when I thought about making money. If I'd have read this book sooner, it would have helped me realise this issue earlier. Once I got over this hurdle, I had to ask myself, what is money actually for? For me, the answer was freedom. The psychology of money puts it a little differently and says it's all about control, but I suppose the goal is the same, to be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want. It also touches on how there's a clear difference between the rich and the wealthy. Wealth is what you don't see. The car's not purchased, diamonds not bought, renovations postponed, clothes forgone, and first class upgrades declined. Unfortunately, many people don't even believe that they can become wealthy. I remember my school friends saying things like, I hope I can get an okay job when I graduate. They weren't even hoping for a good one. The magic of thinking big explains that people are setting their finish line too soon and therefore never have a shot at being successful. While I don't believe that thinking big alone will make you successful, it's certainly the first step. I always struggled in school and felt like a failure. Interestingly, when I left and started working in the real world, I found that I kept winning. This was probably because I chose jobs I had an interest in rather than learning things I didn't care about at school. The winner effect talks about actual studies to back up this phenomenon. The book discusses how positive correlation has been found between successful stock market traders and their testosterone levels. Furthermore, winning increases the testosterone receptors in your brain, which causes you to win more in the future. That's why it's important to set those achievable goals and get those little wins every day. I believe that my struggles in school and my strong drive for success had a positive impact on my life. They left me with no other option but to push forward. Think and Grow Rich tells the story about a great commander. Despite being outnumbered by a far superior enemy, he burned his army's own ships, leaving them with no escape plan. This forced his soldiers to fight with everything they had, resulting in a miraculous victory against all the odds. It just shows there's a big difference between wanting to succeed and needing to. Being comfortable is just as harmful as having an escape plan. During a chat with Andrew Tate, he referred to this as one of the Matrix's tools. Unscripted also presents this idea. The author argues that society aims to transform us into model citizens, which stands for mediocre, obedient, dependent, entertained and lifeless. Avoiding this fate depends on how well you can manage stress. The essence of success gives us a helpful perspective on this. The book mentions that all the water that forms a fog that's 100 feet deep and 7 city blocks wide can fit into a small glass. Whenever I feel stressed, I like to imagine drinking this water and using it as fuel. Now you can develop great habits. Stress can also come from factors outside our control. For this reason, I've made a conscious effort throughout my life to only focus on things that I can directly impact. Atomic Habits reveals that many people fixate on the end goal, which they have no control over, rather than the process of achieving it, which is completely in their hands. I found the author's habit stacking technique to be particularly helpful for forming new habits. It involves pairing a new habit with an existing one, so both are completed at the same time. However, most people just keep putting things off and never form good habits. I know far too many people who just go through the motions without any direction, and before they know it, time has run out. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People stresses the importance of always knowing where you're going and thinking about how you want to be remembered. I know this provides me with extra motivation, but this is only one part of the equation. The 12-week year suggests treating a year as 12 weeks to create a sense of urgency. This really hit home for me, as I know I work best under pressure. Although short-term pain is often necessary for long-term gain, it can be difficult to remember this when faced with challenges. The art of getting things done emphasizes the importance of not relying on your brain to remember all your tasks. Instead, capture them on a phone or a notepad. This way you can organize your tasks without getting them confused, and you can also be selective with how you spend your time. Essentialism reminds us that for every task we say yes to, we have to say no to many others. Therefore, it's important to value yes and not be afraid to say no. After adopting these habits, you should start building high value skills. I've previously said that I don't like the advice, follow your passion. However, So Good They Can't Ignore You takes it one step further. The author interviewed many people who loved their jobs. He found that most of them didn't initially have a passion for their work. Rather, as they improved, their love for their work grew. So what skills should you start building if you aren't necessarily following your passion? The Unfair Advantage suggests that to succeed in an unfair world, you need to play to your natural strengths. Find what you're better at than most people and lean into it. However, it's no longer enough to just possess high value skills. Artificial intelligence is rapidly replacing many jobs. I'm using it more and more in my various businesses to complete simple tasks. That's why the ideas shared in Mastery are more important than ever. My main takeaway was that you need to develop a unique stack of skills that is nearly impossible to replicate. Still Like an Artist echoes this point when it suggests a copy from multiple inspirations until you have a mix that is truly original. Having this unique skill stack will give you the ability to earn a high income. However, that still won't mean you can build wealth without understanding the basics of personal finance. When I was younger, I had a mentor named Dave who taught me about how the rich manage their money. The biggest lesson I learned, which is also shared in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, is that everything we buy is either an asset or a liability. To figure out which one it is, we simply have to ask ourselves, is it putting money in our pocket or taking it away? Of course, if you want to be wealthy, the aim should be to buy as many assets as possible. But lots of people don't see the value of investing. Let me ask you this. Would you rather have $3 million now or a penny that doubles every day for 31 days? The correct answer is the penny, because it actually turns into $10.7 million. The compound effect uses this analogy to demonstrate the power of investing and gaining compound interest. Once most people get their head around this, they get very excited but end up jumping into the markets without really understanding anything. That's what happened in the pandemic. Everyone thought they knew what they were doing, but it was just a massive bubble waiting to burst. That's why I've always followed the principles laid out in the little book of common sense investing. It states that trying to beat the market is a losing game. Instead, you should own the entire market. You can do this by investing in something like the S&P 500 or a broad market index fund. Interestingly, over a 35-year period, only 1% of mutual funds could beat the market by 2%. This means that index funds are a clear choice for the average investor. Although, as I do find them pretty boring, I also like to invest in more interesting stocks with a smaller part of my money. Whenever I do this, I keep in mind that the market is irrational. As the intelligent investor puts it, you should imagine a person coming to your door every day called Mr. Market. One day he may offer you $2,000 for your stock, and the next only $500. even though the company may be doing better than ever. This is because the price of the stock is based on demand and not the actual real world value. I only buy stocks if I'm prepared to ignore what Mr. Market says for a long time. Another phrase I live by is, if you love the store, chances are you'll love the stock, which was shared in One Up on Wall Street. This means if you've got a lot of experience of a company or product, you might actually have a bigger advantage than the pros when it comes to investing. Before we get to the next level, I have to make one thing clear. Reading books on investing can provide you with theoretical knowledge, but to truly succeed in investing and build wealth, you need to put that knowledge into practice. So if you are going to invest, you need to make sure that you're using a tool that provides you with all the necessary information to make informed decisions. This is where today's sponsor Moomoo comes in. If you're interested in building wealth, then you're really going to want to listen to this. It's a powerful investing platform founded in Silicon Valley with over 20 million users worldwide. You can trade stocks straight from your laptop, iPad or smartphone, whether in the United States, Australia or Singapore. You also don't have to worry about commission fees and account minimums. I personally really like the free tool they offer, which allows you to see what famous institutions are investing in and what sectors are performing best. As a beginner, you can also practice your trading ideas with a demo account before entering the market. If you sign up today using the link in the description, you can receive up to 15 free stocks, each worth between $3,000 and $2,000. That's an amazing deal. These free stocks can help you start building your investment portfolio right away. Level 2. $100,000 to $1 million. Now that you've fixed all your internal beliefs, to make the next leap, you'll need to know how to generate more value than you can from just selling your time. We're taught to go to school, get good grades, and then get a high-paying job. However, when you do this, your earning ability is capped. Cashflow Quadrant outlines 4 distinct ways to earn money. E for employee, S for self-employed, B for business owner, and I for investor. Business owners and investors have the advantage of using other people's time and money to build their wealth. That's why it's crucial to move to the right side of the quadrant if you want to become rich. But what does it really mean to be rich? Well, the 4-hour work week explains this best when it says that relative income trumps absolute income. To understand this statement, let me ask you a question. An investment banker earns $500,000 per year working 80 hours a week. On the other hand, an e-commerce entrepreneur earns $40,000 per year but only works 4 hours per week. Who's richer? If we look solely at absolute income, then the banker is clearly making more money. However, if we consider the time worked, the banker earns $120 per hour, whereas the entrepreneur earns $200 per hour. To take it one step further, the entrepreneur can actually already live the retired life that the banker dreams of, as he can operate from anywhere in the world. I'll take the entrepreneur route any day of the week. 0 to 1 states that the first step to starting a business is betting on a contrarian truth. This is the basis for most successful businesses. For example, Netflix had to bet on the fact that people wanted to binge watch TV shows at home, and Airbnb had to believe that people would be willing to stay in a stranger's house. For many people, the biggest hurdle is coming up with an idea. However, this is often easier than you might think. Disrupt You outlines an effective method, which is to write down 3 things that annoy you every day and think about how they could be done better. By doing this, you'll have 90 ideas to consider each month. When you have an idea, don't be afraid to share it with people that can help you. People tend to be too protective of their plans, but the truth is that an idea alone is usually not that great. The lean startup emphasizes the importance of execution and the use of the build, measure, learn feedback loop. This approach ensures that you don't create something nobody wants and allows you to pivot and adapt your idea as you go. There was an interesting study conducted on 108 new businesses across 30 industries. Out of these, 92 businesses chose to enter red oceans, while 16 adopted a blue ocean strategy. A blue ocean refers to a market that has little to no competition, while a red ocean is named so because of the fierce competitions between competitors. The study found that 39% of profits came from businesses in competitive markets, while 61% of profits came from those that used the blue ocean strategy. Furthermore, these businesses went on to dominate their industries for 10 to 15 years after launch. A good strategy for creating your own blue ocean is to become oversubscribed. Consider Ferraris. Many people want them, but not everyone can have one. Yet the people that run Ferrari aren't losing sleep over this, as they know that this scarcity keeps demand high and the car's highly desired. Every oversubscribed product has people who are willing to buy it but can't get their hands on it. When I'm driving up demand for my products, I always remember the core lesson from Breakthrough Advertising. This book is actually the most expensive book in the video. It states that you can't manufacture desires. Instead, your job is to create a product that fulfills enough to become a millionaire. On that note, about a month ago, I gave Laura $1,000 to invest however she liked. She'd never done anything like this before, and you guys loved it so much that you've been asking for an update. So, here it is! Firstly, we discuss how to overcome the fear of investing, because it's all about getting started.
Not really for me. I don't really know much about it. Bit risky.
Next, we'll be revealing how much money she made.
So I put £240 in, and it's now worth...
And finally, unpacking her plans for the future.
Not many girls, I feel like, are investing into it. I kind of like to be there and go, nope, we can do it as well.
Watching this video all the way through will put you in the best position when it comes to making money from investing, as we're going to be showcasing real results with realistic amounts of money. So make sure to smash that thumbs up button for the YouTube algorithm, and we'll get started straight away. Hi Laura, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, you're more than welcome. You know what, it's been a couple of months since we started this investing journey.
That's gone so quickly.
It certainly has. So what I really want to know is, what did you actually think about investing and what are your thoughts on it?
So before I kind of started, I was a bit apprehensive about it, didn't know much about it at all. But the best way to start learning more and more and become really invested in the whole investment process is to actually start. So that was great that you gave me the ability to start doing that. I think it's just the unknown, and the whole link, it kind of seems a bit like gambling. I think you have to just kind of build the trust in it and learn for yourself, and know that if you invest and you lose some, then that's you can live with that.
So it's more of a misunderstanding, isn't it? And probably because it's not been taught in schools to give people the confidence to go ahead and to do it. And what about your friends as well? Because that's another key thing, isn't it? So have you spoken to any of your friends about the investing?
I have a little bit. I know I mainly spoke to my brother about it, and I was trying to get him to sign up for a free share, and then it's just the signing up process for him.
Yeah.
So once he signed up, I think it'll be fine. And I was going, look, Mark and Curtis do this, it's absolutely fine. But yeah, it's just building that trust. And I think as he sees whether my investments have done well and things like that, I think he's just keeping a little sneaky eye on mine, and then he might do it himself as well.
Yeah, I think that's always a bit of a shame to look at it that way, from the way he's looking at your investments and only going to go into them if they go up. I think people need to look at them as a very long-term thing that you're putting money into over a period of time. So maybe you can give them a nudge and say, look, don't wait, because there's no time in the market. It's time in the market that you need. You've got to stay in there.
You've also actually just reminded me of something he said the other day. He said whether he was a bit too late to the Tesla. So I don't know whether, because there's so many stories about people having shares and coins and things, and then it goes up exponentially, and then they wonder whether it's going to plateau or go down from here.
Well, that's the whole thing about time in the market. Nobody really knows where the market's going to physically go. Now, if you take Tesla as a prime example, if I said to you Tesla's going to be $2,500 this time next year, would it be too late to invest? No, exactly. So, we don't know where it's going to go, and trying to time that market will mean you'll never actually get in, because the excuse to get in will be, oh, the market's too high, and the other excuse will be, oh, it's falling, I don't want to get in while it's falling. So there's always an excuse not to invest, and that generally stems around people trying to time the market. So I think you might need to have a word with him.
I will. I feel bad now. Sorry, Michael.
So you mentioned a free stock there, and that's a really good way to get started. And we've partnered up with public.com in the USA, who are actually offering you a free stock worth all the way up to $1,000 when you sign up. And if you're in the UK, you can sign up to Free Trade, and they're offering a free stock worth all the way up to £200. It's basically free money, and I'll leave the links in the description below if you're interested in getting started. Let's talk about stocks. Can you remind us all, because we all want to know, what stocks you bought?
Yes, so I bought Tesla and an S&P 500.
Okay, so how are they performing?
They're actually doing really well. I feel like there's been a little boom in the market at the moment. So,
Okay, well, remind us how much you invested, first of all, in each stock, and then we can see where it's gone from there.
okay, so in Tesla, I put £200 and it's now worth £341.82p.
Wow.
So the gain is £141.82, which is in dollars 190.
That is unbelievable, isn't it?
I know, it's crazy.
And how much work did you actually need to do to generate that money?
Absolutely nothing, apart from checking every now and then because I got so excited and it goes up and down, and then it just kind of went up.
And that's really because they've come to an agreement with Hertz to supply them 100,000 electric vehicles, and that's the equivalent of a $4.2 billion deal. Not only that, in Europe over the last 3 months, Tesla Model 3 is the best selling car. Not the best selling electric car, the best selling car, period. So, you know, what great news when you've got shares in Tesla.
Yeah, definitely. I can kind of tell as I'm driving on the roads, I see more and more Teslas pop up everywhere. So
Well, it used to be a rare sight, didn't it? I remember when I first suggested to Curtis that we get a Tesla, that it was like, well, no one's driving them. You never see any of them about. They can't be that popular. And we really did look, you know, you only saw them now and again. Now they are literally everywhere, aren't they? And they've got a good charging network. That's all I can say. That certainly helps the Tesla brand, because you know you can charge up quickly, and it just works. We're really happy with ours, and it seems that it's the growing thing.
yeah, definitely. And the kind of move in the future to all electric cars, I know that's kind of been pushed back again recently, but yeah.
And that gain is in a 2-month period as well.
Is inevitable, which means people will face financial trouble, possibly lose their jobs, and maybe even their homes as well. But this doesn't have to be you. If you make the right decisions now, then a recession will be a golden opportunity to make more money than you've ever imagined. After all, it's coming, so you may as well profit from it. So in this video, I'm going to share the blueprint I used to make millions of dollars in the last big recession. And as you can probably tell from my hair colour, I've lived through 2 major recessions, so I'm experienced when it comes to this topic. But hold your horses. Before we can get into how you can beat a recession, we first need to talk about what a recession actually is. Recently, the economy has been booming. Products have been selling faster than ever, and companies have been growing at breakneck speeds. But at the same time, the world is unstable and things are beginning to unravel. A recession is measured by GDP, which stands for Gross Domestic Product. Now, this might sound boring, but it's the total amount of all value created in an economy. If you were to buy this RC car from me, for example, this would actually contribute towards the GDP. Now, if this goes down for more than 6 months, we're officially in a recession. By the way, if you want to buy this car, let me know. Before the last big recession in 2008, I spotted the signs early on, and I knew there was a prize waiting for me as long as I could complete the 3 challenges that stood in my way. Nowadays, this mission remains the same, and you can set yourself up for the same success by following my strategy, no matter who you are. The first challenge was the stock market. I needed to figure out how to outsmart it, and this is still just as important for you to focus on today. Stocks are one of the easiest things to start investing in, as it requires very little time and effort to get started, and the upside potential is huge. No one tells you this at school, but if you have an average salary and invest 10% of it correctly each month, then you're almost guaranteed to become a millionaire. So is now the right time to buy stocks, or is it best to wait considering the uncertain times ahead? Well, the sad thing is, when it comes to investing, most people don't even get started, as they see the stock market as a place for the rich to get richer and too complicated for the everyday person. Unfortunately, of the few that do pluck up the courage to start investing, most only do so when everything's booming and lose interest, or worse, sell their stocks as soon as things take a turn for the worse. This just leaves them trying to time the market for the best possible re-entry point, which probably isn't going to come anytime soon. So as much as the stock market is about strategy, it's also about psychology. A dip is technically the best entry point, but the hardest to get excited about. I get that investing your money every month and then watching the prices go down is so demoralizing. It just feels like you're burning money and getting nowhere, but it's It's all about thinking long term. Let me take you back to 2008. The business I started from scratch was gaining some real traction, and I was enjoying providing a nice life for my wife and 10-year-old son. Now, when I say nice life, I could have been going crazy and letting the money go to my head. My accountant once said, "With the amount of income you have, Mark, you could be living like a king, but instead you live like a church mouse." But that was all part of the plan. I knew that a recession would come and that a market crash would also be right around the corner. I saw firsthand when my dad was impacted by a recession in the 1970s, and I didn't want the same for me and my family. So all while my business was booming, my products flying off the shelves and my income looking like it would never end, I was saving up my money ready to deploy. Most people couldn't understand this, and many of my friends were saying I should invest in this stock because it was the next big thing. Honestly, every week it felt like there was another next big stock that was just ready to go to the moon. You might have heard the saying, cash is trash, and for the most part, I agree, but not during a recession. Don't get me wrong, I was investing, but I wasn't being drawn into the hype. This was extremely hard, but in the long term proved to be the correct decision. I'm not claiming to be a financial fortune teller, but I do know a thing or two. The US stock market has always recovered after a crash. A decline in stocks doesn't necessarily mean a recession is inbound, and a recession doesn't always mean a crash in the stock market. So knowing all these things, it wasn't smart for me to sell my stocks when the recession hit, but it was a good opportunity to buy some more. I dubbed the strategy I used the 90-10 formula. Very original, I know, but it's something you can also do today. The 90 refers to 90% of my stock market budget that I allocated to index funds and ETFs. These require very little thought as they spread my money between multiple different companies without me having to lift a single finger. The 10 refers to the remaining 10% of my stock market budget that I allocated to more risky long-term plays like investing in small, undervalued companies. If there's one thing that I know, it's that the stock market can only trade at an unrealistic price for so long, be that high or low, meaning that if the stock is undervalued, it will eventually rise to its true value. But the same rule applies for overvalued stocks. This is why I limit this kind of investing to 10%, as even with my fundamental analysis, which is essentially checking the balance sheets and cash flow statements of a company, I can't be right 100% of the time. But at the end of the day, with smaller individual stocks, the upside potential is so huge. You don't even need to risk more than 10% of your money. The main message here is not to sell and keep investing, if anything, more aggressively than before. I mean, would you hold back when all your favourite items were selling at bargain prices? Of course you wouldn't. So why is it any different when the stock market is on sale? If you want to start investing, then it's great to get your journey kick-started with a free stock from public.com worth between $3,000 and $1,000 if you're in the USA. I'll leave a link down below if you'd like to pick that up. Just remember, with investing, your capital is at risk. But let's address the elephant in the room. I know that most people want it all now and they don't care about investing for the long term to eventually retire. Multiple shops and warehouses. Then, almost overnight, the internet made it irrelevant. I had two choices: give up or adapt. You know me, I wasn't about to quit. So I threw myself into learning everything about making money online. And like most people today, I fell for the hype. I tried every method out there. And guess what? None of them were as easy as people said. But through trial and error, I cracked the code and rebuilt my businesses. But this time with the internet at the core of my strategy. Fast forward to today, and making money online isn't just important, it's an essential thing everyone should be doing. That's exactly why I'm making this video. I spent years testing, failing and refining, losing millions, making millions, and learning what actually works. Now with this knowledge, I can help you avoid all the mistakes and fast track your success. So if you're tired of false promises and ready to commit for the next 6 to 12 months and build something real, this is for you. No gimmicks, no BS, just a process that actually works. All right, so this is the online wealth wheel. And whether you realize it or not, you're already on it. There are three main stages that define where people are in their journey to making money online, plus a secret fourth stage that only a few ever reach. We'll discuss that one at the end. Let's kick things off with stage one. This is where everyone starts with no side hustle. And sadly, 55% of people never start at all. Inflation is making everything more expensive. And let's be real, relying on a single paycheck is more dangerous than ever. So if having a side hustle is essential, why do 55% of people still avoid it? Because the online space is a jungle. It's full of ads pushing proven methods that confuse more people than they actually help. The key to starting the right way is picking a method that suits your skills, budget and lifestyle. If you already have a skill like video editing, graphic design, coding, or even setting up Discord servers, people pay great money for these services and there's no shortage of demand. But what if you don't have a skill to sell, or quite simply don't want to deal with clients? That's where product-based businesses come in. One of the best options is selling products online without ever holding inventory yourself. But I'll get into this in more detail later on. That brings me on to running a failing side hustle. I'm classing a failing side hustle as earning less than $50 per month online. Sadly, 28% of people are trapped here. A lot of people aren't going to like me saying this, but it has to be said. It's almost never your side hustle that's flawed or doesn't work. You're most likely just not putting enough time and effort in. I know that can be hard to hear, but this isn't really your fault. It's down to something called shiny object syndrome. This is when you constantly jump from one trendy online money-making method to another without committing and putting your absolute all into any of them. One week it's drop shipping, then print on demand, then selling books on Amazon KDP, then trading stocks, and then starting a social media agency. The truth is, all the online money-making methods I just mentioned work, but each requires a different level of time commitment, and you'll never get anywhere by jumping from one to the other. It's like that classic diagram of miners tirelessly digging for gold, only to give up just before striking it rich. Instead of pushing through, they abandon their progress, start fresh somewhere else, and waste all that initial effort repeating the cycle over and over again. If you get stuck in this dangerous pattern like the 28% of other people, then you need to recognize it and simply pick a method and stick to it. Forget the idea of a perfect side hustle. Just pick one that's easy to start and has the potential to scale. If you don't have a high income skill to sell, then I'm going to make this super simple for you. In all my years of experience, the thing that has made me the most amount of money online is e-commerce. So I recommend you focus on that, but not in the way most people do. A lot of beginners assume starting an online store means dealing with inventory, suppliers, or complex setups, but that's not the case anymore. That's because you can now utilize AI-built Shopify stores. Instead of spending weeks setting everything up like I had to back in the day, you can now use a free tool called buildyourstore.ai to launch a fully automated store that would normally cost $200 to $300 to set up, but this does it for free in a matter of minutes. You just enter your name and email, pick a niche like fashion, tech or pets, and the AI chooses winning products, designs your store and makes it look professional from day one. If you want to go through this process completely for free, then just click the link in the description and it'll walk you through everything. From there, it syncs directly with Shopify, giving you exclusive access to a 3-month Shopify trial for only $1 per month. But what about making sales? Well, the biggest mistake people make with e-commerce is giving up too soon. Surprise. This is probably because they don't want to deal with inventory or fulfillment. That's why the free AI store builder also walks you through how to integrate a tool called AutoDS, which is kind of like the autopilot system on a plane. It imports trending products, updates pricing and images, and even ships orders directly to your customers. This means you don't have to touch inventory, package anything, or deal with supplier negotiations. You focus on driving traffic and making sales while the system handles the rest. Full disclosure, AutoDS are long-term supporters of this channel, but even if they weren't sponsoring this portion of the video, I'd still recommend them. You can easily create a buzz around your products by creating videos about them on TikTok for free. If you get 100k views and just 1% of the people go and buy your product for $10, then that's $10,000 in revenue. So if you're serious about breaking out of the failing side hustle trap, then choosing a simple automated model like this gives you the best chance at success. No more bouncing between business ideas, just commit, launch, and put in the work to scale it up. Stage 3 is running a successful side hustle. Believe it or not, only 16% of people who start making money online ever make more than $50 per month. The people in this percentile make anywhere from $51 on the low end all the way up to $10,000 a month. Of course, the higher end is what I'd consider actually successful. So what are these 16% of people doing differently, and how can you start applying it to yourself? Well, there's some clear things that I've noticed that separate the people who struggle from those who actually make money online. And to help you get there, I'm going to break them down into 4 key steps that you can follow. Step 1 is to stop trying to appeal to everyone. You might think casting a wide net will get you more sales, but in reality, it does the opposite. If you try to appeal to everyone, you'll appeal to no one. So before you even start promoting your store, grab a notepad or open your notes app and describe. In a millionaire when you're younger is far better. Take it from someone who's experienced both. And no, I wasn't born into a rich family. Quite the opposite. The odds were stacked against me. I was a ginger, working class kid without a penny to his name. So if I can build wealth in a relatively short amount of time, then you can too. This isn't going to be one of those generic videos about investing in index funds and getting rich when you're old and grey. I'm going to be taking you through the actual moments in my life where I uncovered the truth behind building wealth from nothing. From the moment you step foot into school, they try to control your ambition. And one memory that stands out to me was sitting in a lecture theatre just like this one. The teacher asked us to write down our dream job, our dream car and our dream house. I was really excited, so I wrote down business owner, Ferrari and mansion. She then said life is going to be tough, so I'm going to break the hard news to you now. You're probably going to have none of those things, so be realistic and lower your expectations. I thought to myself, of course I will. I'll have all of those things, and I've carried that attitude for the whole of my life. If you allow the system to crush your hopes and dreams, you'll never be able to create wealth from nothing. Look, this isn't some fluffy mindset BS. If you can't even believe something is possible, then how on earth are you going to do the work required to become wealthy? Most people give in to the pressure of being realistic and end up joining the crowd, and then they discourage the next generation from following their hopes and dreams. But you can decide to break the cycle, just like me in that lecture theatre. So if you want to do this, then you firstly need to be very careful about who you listen to. I'm not just referring to those fake gurus on social media. I'm also talking about the people in your life who give their unsolicited advice. While your friends and parents may have good intentions, if they haven't built a large sum of wealth, why would you listen to them when it comes to making money? Secondly, you need to learn to think from multiple angles when trying to solve problems. Most people will come across an obstacle that they've been told is impossible for them to conquer and give up at the first sign of trouble. The more you let these kinds of challenges beat you, the harder it is to break out of the herd, as you're cementing to yourself that you aren't good enough. Whenever I come across a challenge, I think of at least 10 different solutions and then decide on the best way forward. If one doesn't work, then I just try the next one, and so on until I'm successful. Thirdly, you need to step outside your comfort zone. Look, if Harry Potter stayed in the cupboard under the stairs, then he would never have defeated Voldemort. Sorry for the spoilers, but it's so true. Putting yourself in challenging situations helps you grow and improve more than anything else I've ever experienced. When I first joined the workforce as a carpenter's apprentice, I was so excited. It was the job I really wanted to do, but unfortunately, the manager took a bit of a dislike to me and he bullied me practically every day, giving me all the rubbish jobs. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't take it anymore. I came home that night, sat on my couch, and I looked around the room and thought to myself, what have I got to lose? I've got no child or wife to look after. I'm 20 years old. I've got to make this decision. Sure, I'm scared of quitting a job. Of course you're scared, but I knew that was the best thing for me. So I quit the very next day. If you're young and have few responsibilities, it's a clear choice to take more risk to increase your income. Of course, I'm not suggesting that you should go and invest all your money in crypto. The risks should be calculated. Looking back, I didn't realise at the time, but the biggest risk in my life would have been staying at that dead-end job. For me, increasing my income meant starting my own business. However, if this isn't for you, you could always start a side hustle or upgrade your job every couple of years. Studies have actually found that you're more likely to build wealth faster by job hopping rather than staying loyal to one company. However, if your goal is to build wealth as fast as possible and you decide to pick the employee route, then you need to choose a career that isn't dependent on how many hours you work, but on the results you achieve.
After lots of hard work and many sleepless nights, I managed to open my model shop. It was a huge success. I was reinvesting all of my money in the business to help it grow, that I didn't have time to think about investing. One day I decided to take on a work experience lad for 2 weeks, and on the first day all he kept banging on about was stocks and shares, and I thought, what does a 14-year-old know about stocks and shares? Anyway, he mentioned this one particular stock that he said was going to go to the moon. He said, I've got £1,000 and I'm going to pile it all in because I'm so confident. And I thought, well, if he's that confident, I think